Soldiers of the Israeli Defense Forces have freed 4 hostages. This is one of the most significant gains that they have made in recent days, as well as the third operation of its kind. What does it mean? Will that embolden the IDF to take further action? And what does that mean in the international arena? To answer all these questions, we are now inviting Łukasz Przybyszewski, founder of the Abbasid Foundation Fund, is here to answer these questions. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. So, yeah, we've just heard that 4 hostages were freed, and I was hoping you can first give us the detail of the situation.
So, basically, the Israeli forces have freed those 4 hostages in an operation that was kind of complicated in a way, because they had to simultaneously launch an attack on 2 buildings to release the hostages, and it had to be synchronized and done swiftly. The problem is that Hamas is claiming now that at least 200 people died in that operation on their side, yes, but including civilians. And Hamas also claims that some of the hostages were also killed unintentionally by the Israeli Defense Forces. Yeah, so basically, it is a success for Netanyahu. He can now show that he actually does deliver, although it is a very brutal war which costed thousands and thousands of lives. And this also has postponed the opposition leader's Gantz resignation, because he was to hold a press conference yesterday and to announce that he's resigning from the government, but he postponed that, which means that he didn't say his final word yet. So it is not that the pressure is getting on Netanyahu is getting any lower. It just means that Gantz did not want to take away the joy of the families who were reunited with the members who were just held captive by Hamas. Yeah, and today we'll have now in Cairo another round of talks about opening the Rafah crossing for the 8 trucks. But we can assume that Israel will just say that it's undoable because of the security situation on the ground. So I doubt there will be any progress here, especially since the U.S. CENTCOM has reinstalled actually the pier at the shore in Gaza. So some aid will be delivered. The problem is that it only reaches a very slim percentage of the population that actually needs it. Mm-hmm. And everyone's now asking what will happen with the proposed ceasefire deal, the deal that was proposed by Biden. And we know that a lot of countries, especially in Europe, do confirm their support for this deal. Mm-hmm. The thing is that, it cannot be expected that Hamas will just like that lay down their weapons, and that they actually will stop fighting, because there could be divisions. Some could give up. Some perhaps won't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why I guess that's why Netanyahu is simply saying that they will move forward until they release or retrieve the hostages or retrieve their bodies. Yeah.
Right. You've given us a lot to unpack here. So as you mentioned, when it comes to the internal politics inside Israel, the pressure might still not be kind of lowered in any way, shape, or form. And I would ask to ask you about how about internationally? Will the freeing of these hostages kind of simmer a little bit of the tension when it comes to the international pressure to accept this ceasefire? Or as, like you mentioned, other countries will still be pressing that to happen?
I guess other countries will simply keep on stressing that to happen, because once you have a success, you're just motivated to move on, and do it again. So I assume that they will start to deliver. I mean, to release more hostages soon. So I doubt that the ceasefire deal will be implemented. unless Israel will just say that they just have eliminated Hamas. Yeah. So, I mean, the Western countries will do whatever they can, but they are unable to stop Netanyahu and his ultranationalist faction to continue this operation. So, especially since there are also fightings at the border with Lebanon, especially since the situation in the West Bank is also very difficult, and there are arrests, there are some security operations going on. So basically, it's too complicated, and it's there's still too much violence to just say that okay, it's time to stop. So.
Right, like you mentioned, a ceasefire for it to be carried out requires goodwill from both sides. And at the moment, from Netanyahu government's perspective, they still have their military objectives to achieve, while to expect Hamas to just lay down their weapon is also not fairly realistic. So with that just being said, do you think, so in your perspective, the ceasefire might not be able to come into fruition? Do you think there's any sort of deal that could eventually be reached, or do we have to see this thing reach its logical conclusion with either Israeli kind of finally reaching their military goals, or the West put enough pressure for them to stop?
Well, it is a military operation, so the military goals must be achieved. Yeah, both sides perceive the situation this way. Hamas is saying they are supporting the ceasefire because they simply had made an assessment that Israel will not. Yeah, so that's how I see it, and whether it will come to fruition or not depends exclusively on whether Israel will reach its military goals. In the meantime, of course, there are political goals because in some countries are distancing themselves from Israel. Some are openly severing the ties with Israel. So that's a plan that has to be then implemented in the future. Yeah, I think that at least until the end of the year, we cannot expect any moves towards a ceasefire. Perhaps later on. So that's how it looks like. And well, 60% of Gaza was turned into rubble. The deal also involves reconstruction. So we can expect that the reconstruction would be done most likely also under Israeli surveillance, like it was in the past, because that was also done under Israeli surveillance. And I think that we would need to wait another year, unfortunately, to see a ceasefire coming up. I mean, something that would actually be reliable and credible that, okay, this is a real ceasefire. It will last for at least 6 weeks, as Biden expects it to last. And until the ceasefire is reached a conclusion, because the negotiations have to also take place during the ceasefire, between both parties. Until both parties won't agree on what will happen next, then, well, simply nothing will happen,
Right.
So basically, a ceasefire is one thing, but then they also have to get together to terms, and that will be extremely difficult. So it may happen that there will be a ceasefire or a semi-ceasefire with some clashes erupting from time to time. But whether Hamas and Israel are able actually to sit at the table and negotiate, that's highly doubtful.
Right. And last but not least, you also shed light on the political goals rather than just militarily. And of course, speaking of which, I would like to draw our attention to the fact that the U.S. is also entering its presidential election. And a lot of the Biden administration's current decision when it comes to Israel do have to take that in mind. With that being said, do you think after the U.S. presidential election, be it Biden or Trump winning, losing, will that affect the equation of how U.S. deals with Israel?
No, it will not. I mean, you can look back decades and you will just see that the approach of the US has never actually changed. Rhetorically, perhaps some stylistical differences in speeches, etc., but not the strategic approach as a whole. It's common knowledge, and well, that's at least the common perception that Israel is the US permanent carrier in the Middle East. Giving its intelligence and power projection leverage. So that's, well, nothing will change in this regard for sure. And I also don't think that there will be any publicly announced normalization with Saudi Arabia seen in the near future. For now on, most countries in the Gulf are actually getting closer to Iran. So.
Right. So I guess it'll still take some time until we see the light on the end of that tunnel. And with that being said, thank you so much for joining us on TVP World. Thank you for shedding light on all these issues. Our guest was Łukasz Przybyszewski, founder of the Appleseed Foundation Fund. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue.